I have the wonderful pleasure of introducing Betsy Anderson. Betsy, thank you so much for coming into the show.
I am delighted to be here, and it is a marker day, and I think doing art is one of the most positive things, so it's just great. Thank you for having me be a part of your show.
Yeah, it's a tough day, folks, and all the power to everyone out there that can make it a positive day and change the world for better. Betsy Anderson is a local treasure. She has also been on the radio. You have a radio past.
I do.
Over at KUSP, our other community radio here in Santa Cruz.
I did the show State of the Arts when I was known as Betsy Miller, and I shared that show with Peter Troxel.
Wow.
Great guy.
Peter Troxel, if you may not know, folks, is he's the big force behind KUSP.
Well, he moved a lot forward there. You know, a station like that has many people who make it really what it is. And he took on the mantle from being the show host of State of the Arts. Really was such an advocate and a theater person himself. So he did the interviews that related to anything which was performing, and I did the visual arts portion.
So this is kind of what we do here at Artist on Art. You have that experience from the past.
Yeah.
You're also a painter, an artist in your own right.
Yes.
And you've taken on curating as a new art form. Is that correct?
Yes, I've done that off and on through the years. I have been a curator, sure.
And you are the director of the Museo Eduardo Carrillo Gallery here at UCSC.
Well,
that's right.
The gallery here is in honor of him. He was a professor here for 25 years. So that gallery... I'm not sure who exactly coordinates it, but it's an exhibition venue for seniors, so it's really designated for the students who have been working hard throughout their college career, and it gives them a forum for showing.
And those are seniors that are in the art program.
Exactly.
And so kids that have come here and studied art and for 4 years, then the ones that are exceptional in some way get to have, or do all the seniors?
You know, my understanding is that I think all the seniors, that it is one of the requirements, so it's kind of a rite of passage to coordinate their own exhibition, to kind of summarize their work. And I don't think it's exclusive to people who have been on campus for 4 years. I mean, I'm not sure what the percentage now is of transfers, but I imagine it's all people who've reached the point in their college career where they're art seniors.
They're seniors here at UCSC. Betsy Anderson, tell us about some of the vision that you have for the actual Museo Eduardo Carrillo.
Well, we are an online museum. My understanding is we're one of three. The other two are Museo de las Mujeres de Costa Rica, and the other is the International Museum of Women. So our goals are... our mission statement is to bring Eduardo's art and his legacy into the world. And as a professor and a community member, so many people here in Santa Cruz and beyond remember him with the deepest of fondness. We are expanding our programming to include some of what we think of as his generous legacy. One is that I'm developing an arts program for middle school girls, and also we have a curatorial site we're developing. And last year's Carrillo Scholarship recipients submitted their work, and a number of them are on the website on our gallery called On View.
And if you're interested in visiting that website, you can go to museoeduardocarrillo.org, and I'm going to spell that for y'all. museoeduardocarrillo.org.
Yeah, thank you.
And there's the folks who weren't privileged to get to meet him, that weren't here Santa Cruz or UCSC when he was teaching during his long legacy. But you have another way of people to find out about Eduardo Carrillo. Tell us a little bit about the event that's happening September 19th.
Absolutely. So one of our initiatives has been to make sure that Eduardo's story is shared. And a few years ago, we used the public fundraising platform, Kickstarter, to raise funds to make a movie on Eduardo Carrillo. We engaged Pedro Pablo Celedon, who is a renowned Chilean filmmaker based in Los Angeles. And he took on the project with us. Now we're in the next phase. We have our promotional video that was a result of that effort. And recently we were awarded another $50,000. And we're working to raise a bit more to complete this film. And we think that this document will really share Eduardo's story as a first-generation Mexican-American pioneering artist. The event will be an opportunity and an invitation for people who don't know Eduardo to get a feeling of him through this film and talking to the director and myself and Alison Carrillo, the founder of Museo. But also, and it'll be an opportunity for people if they'd like to get involved in this project with us. But we're also seeking old friends that we know we've lost touch with via the university community. And thank you so much for allowing us to come on through KZSC, Nada, because we know that there are many people who are still here that we don't know, and we'd like to make sure we reconnect with them.
So you're asking for people to come forth that may have some recollections of Eduardo Carrillo that perhaps might even make it into the movie.
Well, yes, and you know, Pedro Pablo, being the filmmaker that he is, in terms of documenting people's comments and recollections, there's an immediate way that we can do that through the internet. And being an online museum, having a Facebook presence, that's about the extent of our social media. But we think everybody who knew him has a wonderful piece to share in this, this visualization of his life.
And in some way, an archive.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
Betsy Anderson is here today to talk with me here, Nada Milkovich, on Artist on Art. She is a painter, artist, curator, and director of the Museo Eduardo Carrillo, a online museum at the moment that can be found at Eduardo Carrillo, museoeduardocarrillo.org. So come on out, folks. The event is Thursday, September 19th. That's next Thursday. And it's at 5:30 to 7:30 at our wonderful Santa Cruz Museum of Art and History, otherwise known as the MA, which can be found across the street from Trader Joe's in downtown Santa Cruz. And there will be a showing of Eduardo Carrillo, a life of engagement promotional short film. And also you will have the opportunity to speak with this amazing director.
Exactly. We also think that this is kind of the moment to seize, because Eduardo will be having a major retrospective in 2015 at the Crocker Art Museum in Sacramento, California. We're delighted. We have an alliance with them. We have a room in Allison and Eduardo's name there, and we think they're a pretty magical institution. Their director and whole staff is fantastic. We are delighted by the ability to share Eduardo's work, and in recent months we placed an ad in the Art in America, and someone stepped up who had a fantastic story, and we found, in quotation marks, a piece that had been missing from us.
Wow.
And it had been in a private collection all this time, passed from one person to another. And these are the kinds of things that make being an online entity Very, very interesting, and we're very immediate in our response to people. So
yeah, it's a very interesting concept, having a museum on the internet where people that can't make it to Santa Cruz, that can't come out, let's say, to the Crocker Museum in Sacramento in 2015 because of where they live, can go to the internet. I mean, it's one of the greenest ways you can have a museum.
It's true. And yes, that's true. And one of our plans, apropos that, is that there's a plan afoot to travel this retrospective. The catalog will be fully bilingual, and we think that's an important move. Even though our website isn't yet fully bilingual, we're looking toward that. And we think that the Crockers, following in the steps of Susan Hillhouse Leask, who put together a retrospective here, which traveled to 2 different venues, we think that that the Crockers' visionary in putting Eduardo's artwork forth.
So, Betsy Anderson, I just wanted to talk a moment about what does Eduardo Carrillo's art look like? What are his paintings? If you could try to describe one of the paintings for our audience that has not seen it. It's figurative.
Yes,
mostly.
It is. True. Yes, that's true. I think in the most immediate way, especially a way that people could see for themselves, we have a publication that accompanied the exhibition. So the MA has on stock a fully color hardbound book with wonderful writing contributions. The piece on the cover is one of his landmark pieces, and it's called Las Tropicanas. It's from the 1970s when he was doing large-scale murals. Some people may remember the mural that was affectionately known as the Palomar mural, which was painted out. During this period of the 70s, he worked with vibrant colors, quite luminous, richly hued, and the space was almost energized in this particular painting with a kind of sizzle in its light. So a sizzling light against darkness.
With a lot of yellows and golds.
Greens. A wide palette. It's a kind of dreamlike scene that embeds a pyramid of skeletons, iguanas, large sort of archetypal birds, and figures moving within the space. You can find this book at the MA and get to see for yourself. One of the thank yous we have is that the book was designed by Mark Destu, and he was so wonderful to work with. One of my goals and pet peeves is when large-scale pieces go across the gutter in a book, and Mark
the gutter being where the book folds.
So the seam in the book, and Mark was able to place that image, that large-scale image, which in person is 14 feet long. He was able to place it so that it's visible in a fold-out page. So take a look at the book. They have that at the MA. It's pretty special, and that period of work used transparency in a gorgeous way.
And so that book, again, is a companion piece to and is a standalone in its own right, but it's a companion piece to the exhibition that was created by Susan Hillhouse Leask and was shown at the Santa Cruz Museum of Art and History. And then it also went to several other museums, galleries. It
went to College of Notre Dame de Namur in Belmont, and then it went up to Santa Rosa Junior College.
And that was between 2009 and 2010. And you, Betsy Anderson, edited the book.
I asked people to come on board to write for it. And
So it was a collaborative.
Yeah, I wanted contributions. So what I would do is I asked somebody to choose a picture, and then to write in their own style a reverie, a response to it. But we also had contributions. Actually, Adrienne Rich is published in our book, and we were thankful that she did a translation of Francisco Alarcon's poem.
And so, Betsy Anderson, if we could just talk a little bit more about Eduardo Carrillo's style. He is one of the first, would you say, in this area to really bring a, would you say, Chicano aesthetic or element?
That's yes, I think so. It's interesting. He was hired as, I believe he was the first Chicano art faculty member here. That was in 1972 when I was a student. He also was one of the coordinators of a very landmark conference called Califas, which brought together many notable Chicano artists and scholars. And on Thursday we'll have some footage which was recorded by Philip Brookman, a former alum here, and be able to see Eduardo in his own words from the 1980s. He at the time he went to school, the prevalence and visibility of Mexican culture wasn't really available. And so he was able to, even though he didn't have that, he was able to bridge that for students here as the student body here become more diverse.
It's a very interesting thing for our students to hear that there is a backstory to what we are able to, what do I want to say, that we have this diversity, but that didn't just happen. It's not like it came out of nowhere, that there was pioneers in this, and that the Chicano artists had to really fight for a placement in the canon. Otherwise, there was no, other than, let's say, the muralist Frida Kahlo's husband, Diego Rivera. Other than that, who else was there? And that the early 70s was a really great time for these artists to come out and claim themselves.
Well, yeah, it was very interesting because the whole issue around public art, the vulnerability of public art, the move to preserve public art, the destruction of it. Eduardo did predominantly large-scale work in the 70s. I mean, there were other pieces, but he did a piece which was destroyed here, which I mentioned. It's available on view on our website. But also he was commissioned for a fantastic large-scale tile mural in downtown Los Angeles, which is still there. And LA actually recently got an ordinance passed, a mural ordinance passed, which they want to claim LA as a mural destination site, really a historical mark. And the mural movement was strong across the country in the 70s. And it was an interesting bridge between private expression and ongoing public comment, which is often the situation for public artists, is that they're on the receiving end of comments ongoing.
So I just want to thank you, Betsy Anderson, for bringing to us this a remembrance of Eduardo Carrillo and being the force behind the museum, the online museum, Museo Eduardo Carrillo. Let's just describe a little bit more what these paintings and murals look like. There's an aspect of what you find in Diego Rivera. There is some politics in it, when you say?
The LA mural, the one which was destroyed here, was, I think of as a synthesis of his connection to his cultural roots, his Indio, his Christian, and it was a merge of that. The LA mural is more historical. It commemorates the uprising by the peasants led by Father Hidalgo. So it's much more of a commemorative kind of mural.
Which is what the root of the history of LA, Los Angeles.
Right, and it was it's across from Union Square, between Union Square and Olvera Street, and it's right there at the site, Plaza de Dolores. Yes, it is. And his work, I think Eduardo is an artist who wasn't contained within a particular description, because although he was a Mexican-American artist, his imagery was very rooted in the world around him, which was filled with influences. But he looked deeply at his connection to Baja, which was his ancestral homeland, and lived there. He went there every year and actually had a little outcropping above the village of San Ignacio, which is where he went year after year and painted. Yeah.
I think of some of them having some Chagall-like look to it. Also a little bit of Diego Rivera with the strong lines. I guess that would be possibly like a Russian 1920s poster-like. But he embraced the idea of celebrating his Mexican root, his Mexican Americanism, which was a wonderful model for the kids to see while he was the professor here.
Right. I think that, it may be a common phrase, but I mean, art transcends those boundaries, but it also can pay homage to all those influences. And I think as his work changed over the years, I think I see in his Baja paintings a sense of that extensive light-filled landscape that plays on your eyes, and that he turned his attention to anything which was around him. One of the projects that I think is really important and very accessible for youth is that he used watercolors as a journal technique, and he did watercolors, Allison tells, every morning. He'd wake up, get his coffee, and paint 3, 5, 7 watercolors. And I think that that for youngsters, that model is a really great model. It's beyond words. It's acknowledging your moment in time. And so I'd like to bring that part of Eduardo's stories in an accessible way and a hands-on way to youngsters.
Oh, that's so wonderful. If you are inspired by what you've been hearing, please go to Museo Eduardo Carrillo.org. You'll be able to see the online museum, Museo Eduardo Carrillo. Also, come out next Thursday, September 19th, at the Santa Cruz MA from 5:30 to 7:30. You'll be able to meet the director of the short, Eduardo Carrillo, A Life and Engagement, which is really just the beginning of a what would you say, a full-length
a
feature
larger documentary. Right.
And for more information, if you missed anything and you want to talk to Betsy Anderson, give her a call at 831-239-9411, or you can email her at spark@cruzeo.com. You can also find out how to get a hold of her at museoeduardocarrillo.org, or you can go to artistonart.com, where you'll be able to see a lovely video of Betsy Anderson talking with us today, showing us the beautiful book cover.
I'll show and tell.
There we go. Betsy, thank you so much for coming on today.
Not at the moment. Have flown.
Our show comes to an end, but we still have Dana Bagshaw and Matt Matthews up next to talk about the upcoming drama production Cell Talk 1410. So stay tuned, everybody, for a little more Cesaria Evora. Betsy, I'd really like to have you come back on and talk about your art sometime soon.
Well, thank you. This was the fastest half hour ever. Thanks, Nada.
That's a great thing. All right, everybody, stay tuned.